Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. That's Central Time, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and nationwide, syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find us on the radio at iacradio.media, where we are Fox News affiliates. And you can also find us on the podcast at the Newscasters Studio. That's the newscasters.com. Make sure you download all the apps. It's a real quick way to watch and listen to the show. Definitely appreciate that. By the way, I love your emails. Send all emails to Donna at donnasedge.com. I have Linda with me, right? Linda, I wanted to mention this. In high school, I was quietest. And so, I'm holding up a sign in 1977, Geraldine High School, quiet, please. And so I hung out in the library all the time. So it's probably why I got quietest, assigned that label. But I love research. And so our listeners and folks who watch the show will send emails about ideas. They want to know how to do things. They want to know how the government is. How can we stay safe in this world? So Linda Hansen is with us right now. And thank you so much for being on the show. We have a mutual friend, Rob Patz. And so I'm appreciative to Rob for making that connection. And so you have a long, let's go ahead and talk about your background. What brought you to this point?
Well, my background is varied. First, for most of my adult life, I was raising and homeschooling my 6 kids. And that was a joy and a pleasure. And I was one of the homeschooling pioneers, started in 1984, before it was legal in many states. And I could see the benefits of homeschooling, and I could see what was on the horizon. God had called me into politics and policy, although I didn't do so as a job until most of the kids were gone. But he put that on my heart and had given me a very clear calling. So I worked to educate myself and read and learn and just constantly grow. And I was doing some speaking, occasionally I would speak to groups on issues, and I could see what was on the horizon for our nation. And I remember thinking, over my dead body, will I put my kids through that? And at the time that our oldest son was starting school, they were doing so many experimental reading programs, which is nothing compared to what they're doing in the schools now. But I thought, no. I mean, I knew if I could teach them to read well and to love learning, that I could get hit by a bus and they would be ready to go in life. And so I was committed to homeschooling them. I'm so thankful my husband was supportive, and we committed on that path. So for most of my adult life, I did that. And then as they got older, I was involved in local politics, just volunteering, doing lit drops with kids or working the dairy breakfast. I'm from Wisconsin. So getting nomination papers signed or stickers on people, for candidates and stuff. And one thing led to another. I was very involved in the flip of Wisconsin in 2010, where I and a colleague, we started organizations that really grew a grassroots movement. And we started a think tank, a conservative think tank, the MacGyver Institute for Public Policy. And at that time, in that cycle, there was nothing on the legal front for conservatives. Conservatives were, if you think lawfare, I mean, it was lawfare, 101 back then, right? But we had nothing on the conservative side to fight that. So we did all that, and we're able to help flip Wisconsin in 2010. And that is, during that time is when God called me to start Prosperity 101, which I'll go back to. But then after 2010, we could really see, this colleague and I, we could really see that America wanted a businessman in the White House. And I had been working quite a bit with Herman Cain and sharing the speaking stage with him at events and things. And we could tell that America really wanted someone like Herman Cain. And so we went to him and said, we think you should run for president. And so there were 2 of us and no money and a candidate nobody knew, but we said, we can take you to number 1. He said we were crazy, but we all prayed about it and said, okay, let's do it. And so we did. He was number 1 for like 6 weeks before he started polling ahead of Obama. And they had to, of course, take him out with their usual lies and slander and things.
Yeah.
Right. And but it was an honor to work with him and to do that presidential campaign. I was deputy chief of staff for the presidential campaign, and then had the pleasure of working with him on and off with many things for over 12 years. And I did many regulatory reform, issue advocacy, campaign, you name it, I've done it. I'm also a coach, a personal executive coach, a speaker, author. But what I'm here to talk to you about, and what you were interested in, is Prosperity 101, which I started back in the 2008-2010 cycle, because as we were going around the state trying to raise money for these crazy strategies we had, business owners were telling me they would leave the state if a business-friendly governor wasn't elected. Mm-hmm. And I knew immediately that there are so many millions of people who go to voting booths and vote themselves right out of their jobs because they are clueless about how it really works, how capitalism really works, and that we actually have to have healthy, vibrant, profitable businesses in order for them to have jobs and an economy that is robust, right? And so one time I was speaking to 500 top managers at a major corporation, and the Lord just told me, they get it, but the people who stock the shelves don't. And I want you to write a book. And it was pretty much downloaded to me that day. And so I wrote a book and developed a facilitator guide for employers to use to do workshops in their workplace and things. And it kind of took off from there. So now I have the third revision of the book, or the third edition of the book. I have an updated course, an online course with facilitator guide and everything that employers can use. I have a podcast I've been doing for 4 years, and another book on the way. And I do speaking and workshops and things. And it's my passion to get employers to educate employees, because we have all these people who've come through the public education system in America, and now they're in the workforce. They're 20, 30, 40 years old. They are absolutely clueless. They probably never even read the Bill of Rights, so they have no idea if they're voting to protect their rights. Mm-hmm. And I say, if employers don't do this, who's going to? If they're at the end of the assembly line of the cultural flow of their life, and they're in the workforce and no one has taught them the basic civics and basic economics about how our country and our government system works and what makes for prosperity, who's going to teach them? So I say, employers, please, it's up to you. You have an opportunity and a responsibility. And I think Christian employers, if 40 to, I've heard everything from 41 to 50% of Christians didn't vote in the last election, 2020.
Blows my mind.
I know, it blows my mind too. But if we say, okay, they didn't vote, well, if we can activate Christians to get out to vote according to their values, but then also if they would just show that love and care for their employees, so they give them basic information, not telling them how to vote, but giving them enough information that they can make an informed choice. And they may disagree with their employer, but at least they will have been given basic information to make an informed choice, because the schools aren't doing it. And so we see it in our culture right now, exactly what's happening with, ill-informed voters and low information voters. And we see it, and we're seeing the results of it. So I'm saying, employers, please join with me. Join this movement of employers educating their employees. And I have resources, and I want to encourage every employer to speak truth and share that concern with their employees. So
I just have to tell you this, amazing you homeschooled. So my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, decided about the same time you did that she was going to homeschool the kids. Well, I knew nothing about it. I mean, you hear about the school system. I had a son in school, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But Paula, my fear was the kids were going to be antisocial because they were only going to be hanging around with her. That was the first concern. And I have to tell you, Linda, these are the smartest kids I have ever met. And so she had two boys and a little girl. The little girl was 2 years old. She was teaching the boys Spanish, how to speak Spanish, the little girl was walking around speaking Spanish. She was just hanging around listening.
Uh-huh.
I'm just telling you, and they're the most social kids I have ever met.
Right.
They because they feel liberated.
Right.
They didn't feel confined. They
Right.
could learn as much as they wanted. So my son goes to school, and you've probably heard this story over and over again. So I was a math quiz in school. So I actually represented the shy person. I didn't want to win, okay, because I didn't want to get in front of the group, but I actually won a math contest, and I got to represent the school in math. My son comes in from school. By the way, we had been told if you carry a calculator to school, you will cast you out for a week.
Right.
You won't be able to come back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So expelled. And so my son comes in with a note that says he has to have a calculator. And I'm silent for a minute. And I said, "Did your girlfriend write this?" I said, "I'm not believing that, son."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I have," and he's never a troublemaker, nothing like that. And I'm just thinking he just wants a calculator. So he's saying the teacher says he has to have it in math. And I said, "No, that's cheating." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Mom, I have to have a calculator." So I said, "Okay, I'm calling your teacher." So I called the teacher, and I said, "Brad tells me he has to have a calculator for math." And she said, "He does." And I said, "Are you kidding me? A calculator?" Mm-hmm. Well, see, I had a career, and so I'm thinking I can't homeschool. So there was a real nice Christian school and private school in the area. So I jerked him out of the school and I put him in there. And to me, this was cheating. You're not using your brain.
Right.
For math quizzes, for math problems, whatever. And we're seeing that now.
Right.
I mean, you go through a drive-through and just give them, let's say your order comes to $10.50. It's going to be much more than that now because of the crazy economy we have. But let's just
hamburger.
So I give the person a $20 bill and 25 cents. You would have thought I would have blown their head off. I mean, they look so confused. They can't even use a calculator. They don't know how to give you change back.
No, they don't.
We're in trouble. So yes, businesses, listen to this show today. It's so important. I mean, you hire people who can't give correct money back.
I know businesses who are doing remedial reading classes, remedial math classes, just so people at base level jobs can actually perform their job. So this is a failure. When, we hear like President Trump is saying, maybe we can get rid of the Department of Education, and some of the conservatives are saying, I'm like, yes, what's it doing for us? It's taking our money and it's not helping. Like everybody will scream and cry and say, we don't care about education, but actually we do. Let's put the money where it needs to actually serve the students and go back to helping students be proficient in things. But I mean, it breaks my heart to see that. My family had restaurants when I was growing up, which is part of the reason why I understand the need to, for businesses to be profitable. I was hiring and firing, sorry, kids, but hiring and firing some of my peers when I was still in high school because we had a family restaurant, right? And I was running, especially one of them, and supervising some others, like when I was a senior in high school. And so the real life learning that brought, but also I remember the first year we started those restaurants, and I came home from school one day and my parents sat me down and said, we need to talk to you. And they had actually taken money out of my savings account that day to pay payroll. And they're like, we're so sorry. We borrowed your money. We'll pay you back, And I thought my friends that were working for us had no idea what we went through to make sure their payroll got paid, that their checks got paid. And, there's just so much to owning a business and being an entrepreneur and having business-friendly policies. You can never get a job from a poor person, right? So you have to have a profitable business, and you can't have an economy funded by air, even though our government seems to think so. Like you can just print money and fund it,
Printing it.
You just print it. Yeah, I wish I had that money tree in my backyard. But it just doesn't work that way. Eventually it all falls. And so helping people really understand this is really showing you care for them. So I tell employers that if you really care about your employees, you will take time to talk to them about these issues. Like I would say there were employees, many businesses that would get my book, and just give it to every single employee. I have this online course, 12 quick lessons. We can do a pricing according to what works for you. You can do it as a lunch and learn or like an all-day workshop, or you can have them study independently on their own. And it basically takes people through the basic foundations of prosperity. And first of all, what is prosperity? Like, prosperity isn't money. It's human flourishing and freedom. That's what people come to America for. Human flourishing and freedom. Well, now we have a whole round of immigrants that may come for different things, but history, yeah, we've had. And so what is the foundation of that? And that is our founding documents. We have a very unique system of government that has led the world in freedom. So we have basic foundations. And, I was speaking to a group last week up in Minnesota, and I showed the Bill of Rights, and I said, so I won't ask for a show of hands, but when was the last time any of you read this document? And just the looks on their faces, I could tell some of them felt a little guilty.
Yeah, deer in the headlights look is probably what you got.
But how often we take that for granted here in America, especially, I've talked to legal immigrants who know more about our founding documents than those native-born Americans who grew up here, and we take it for granted. And so we just have to go back and say there's a reason that we've had this opportunity, and it is our founding documents. And there are principles that those were founded on, and those are the Judeo-Christian principles. I believe them to be biblical principles, but I also know that, it isn't prior to contrary to a lot of what some people think. It doesn't mean we're saying every single person in the country has to be a Christian. We're saying there are principles that actually help for good government and good civil society and orderly rule of law and things that bring freedom for people. So we have these basic foundations, but then there's policies of prosperity, policies of human flourishing and freedom. And those are basic economic policies. Dr. Art Laffer often says, if you tax something more, you get less of it. If you tax something less, you get more of it. And it's kind of like, well, duh.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's so simple. But when we get all the doublespeak that's going on in our culture now, it's easy for people to really get confused about that. So it brings it down to the very basics. And then how to protect that prosperity by becoming informed, involved, and impactful. And that's a basic citizenship thing. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a way to help your employees or your maybe it's a private school or a homeschool group or whoever. I'd be happy to work with whoever, but it's a great opportunity for them to have some basic information that helps them, counter the narrative that's out there, but helps them think beyond the headlines. But it's still very basic. It's written at like the 5th to 8th grade level. And I also have some posters on the website that I also have translated into Spanish. So if you need bilingual information, that's there. You can go to the website, prosperity101.com. And I really just want to serve people and help get this information out, because when I do, people are very responsive, and employers too, when they realize, whoa, if not them, who? And if not now, when? Because if we don't step up now and we take care of our country and fight for our freedom now, I don't think we'll have the same country.
No, it's very pivotal. We've got to do it now. I mean, absolutely now. So I could have used you several years ago when I used to own 8 Nextel cell phone stores. They were all over Alabama. And it was just, I feel like there's a word I love, and I don't think there's a thing wrong with it. It's a word called ambition. I mean, I was, even back in that day,
right,
I was seeing less. And what happens is, and you hit the nail right on the head, where people see a business owner, they're working for a business, and they act like it's a shame for them to actually make a profit.
Right.
Any company I ever worked for, I wanted them to make a profit.
Right.
That was, to me, that was employee. That meant I had a job.
Right.
As long as they're making a living, and I wanted them to do more than make a profit. We came from a business background as well. My husband's dad owned the business, mine owned the business. And, so we know what it's like also. You got to get those employees paid. That was really, really important. But I also heard my dad and my husband's dad say, I'm not so sure I would want to own a business now.
Be pretty tough. It's very tough. Very tough for business owners. You have the regulatory environment. Of course, we just had the Supreme Court case that came through in the ruling on the Chevron deference, and that is going to really help reduce the regulatory burden on businesses. I mean, that's been one of the major things that I've heard from businesses all for decades, right? Is that, the regulatory environment is so detrimental to business, and it puts a chokehold on you. And so hopefully this will open that up and begin to help businesses thrive. And for those people who say that if we don't care about those regulatory guidelines, that we don't care about the environment, or we don't care about worker safety or anything. And that it's just so opposite. Like, of course we care about the environment. Of course we care about worker safety. Of course we care about equal pay for equal work. And, we care about all those things because we care about freedom and we care about human flourishing. So we want to make sure environments promote that, right? But when we have regulatory compliance issues that just choke a business, we eliminate jobs and we eliminate growth, and then our nation can't thrive either. So I'm excited about that Supreme Court ruling because it's really going to open things up. And part of President Trump's big boom to the economy when he was president was that he eliminated all these regulations. And, for every new one, he eliminated 2 or 3. And so it really reduced the regulatory burden for people.
There is, I'm sure you've heard of fair tax.
Yes.
And I've really been studying that one thoroughly. I like that idea. It sounds a little scary to people. It seems to look a little bit too easy to be true, but I get how that could work.
Yeah, I do too. And when I was Deputy Chief of Staff with Herman Cain's presidential campaign, we had 999. And I just did a podcast episode with Steve Moore. It'll be published shortly with the economist Steve Moore. And he was talking about when we came up with that and the work that we all did to come up with that. And that was, 9% corporate tax, 9% income tax, 9% personal tax. And I mean, it was great. So many people still remember that and say, boy, our nation would be in a lot different place if we had 999. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, big government people don't like it, but the people who like limited government would really like it.
Absolutely. And any politician I speak with, when I bring up fair tax or flat tax or any of those taxes, they really run from it.
Right.
But to me, this is how you thin out the thugs in the government.
Right.
And there are plenty of them.
New colors come out.
Yeah, it's a good way to get rid of them. If you don't like it, we'll come up with something better because what we have now is just not working. And as a business owner, so we all get it. Okay, right. So as a business owner, you're constantly thinking about your expenses and you try to cut down on those expenses so you can pay your employees and have the kind of business that you need. But we couldn't run our businesses like the government. Just spend whatever.
Yeah, we'd be in jail. If we ran our businesses like the government, we'd be in jail.
And people are just not feeling the freedom. And so many businesses really don't want to say what's wrong and what's right with the government because they're so afraid they're going to be shut down. Right. The other thing that happened to us is I'm a conservative. And so we're living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was a member of the Tea Party. And we've always heard that you need to keep all of your tax papers for at least 7 years. Right. So we decided, my husband retired, we decided to move back to Alabama. And so I said, throw away those old boxes. Why are we carrying that? My husband said, I think we need to hold on to them. And I said, no, those are way past 7 years. We don't need that. It's just a bunch of junk for us to have to take back. And I'm glad that he didn't listen to me. Linda, this is incredible. So we had moved back to Alabama, received something from the IRS, said we owed $10,000. So I'm calling them. I'm trying not to be, ill and whatever to the person I'm speaking with on the phone. And I'm saying, Mr. Sir, and all this, And I said, what is this bill about? We don't owe anything. They guesstimated from 15 years prior. And I think it was the lowest learner thing was going on at that time, where so they picked us out because we were conservatives, and they knew that I'd been to tea parties and all this. I was big in it. And so what it was is they did a guesstimate on W-2s, and that apparently we hadn't sent in, but we had. And thank God my husband kept all of that. We had to send it back. Okay. Started out thinking it was $2,000. Interest and penalties put it to over $10,000. So I had to send all that in again, and we got cleared of it. But what they were hoping, it was us against them. They were hoping we didn't have that info.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's brutal. It can be really brutal. Back in those years too, so many people were having issues with organizations that were 501c3s or 501c4s, which we had issues that we had to fight here in Wisconsin. And I actually had a 501c3 that was for a half marathon and a 5K that I founded. It was for a different town where I had raised the kids, and it was a kind of a gift back to the city. It was total volunteer. Nobody got paid. It was to promote, the whole purpose of it was to promote fitness and athletic tourism to the area. And, but in another part of my life, I was working on, right to work or, defeating big government and stuff. And do you know that they canceled out my 501c3 that was for a half marathon and a 5K? And so they're just brutal.
Yeah, but you know what? You just move on.
Right.
And go find something else. And that's what people are afraid of. They think, no, they've stopped me. No, they haven't stopped you.
No. Well, they only stop us when we let them stop us. Okay. And this is yesterday. I don't know, all your audience and everybody that listens to you. But yesterday I watched while Steve Bannon was sent to jail. Okay. Steve Bannon, like, this is ridiculous. And I got to say, if you guys haven't seen the video and the press conference and the shows he did before he went to jail, I mean, talk about courage. We've got, Peter Navarro's in prison. Steve Bannon's in prison. They're going after President Trump's lawyer, John Eastman. They have tried to bankrupt Rudy Giuliani. They are going after, the 75-year-old grandmas praying in front of the abortion clinic. They're going after mothers and fathers going to school boards saying, they're opposed to such radical things in the schools. There, not to mention the J6 prisoners, which thankfully there's another Supreme Court ruling that just came down that is going to hopefully bring freedom for so many of these who've been just languishing in prison without even having a trial. I mean, it's just a horrendous thing. So we're at a point in history that if you're afraid to speak up, then you're going to have to be one of those ones that says, then they came for me, but no one was there for me. I often share that poem by Pastor Martin Niemöller, the one, it's very familiar to a lot of people, but it's, first they came for the Jew and, or first they came for the, I can't remember. First they came for, but they came for the trade unionist, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jew, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. And it goes down the line, and eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. So courage is contagious. We have to speak up. There's more of us than there are of them. So you employers who are afraid to share, like, say, even my information, which is nonpartisan, I want to say too that if people are interested in my book or the course, this is just the facilitator's guide for the course that people can get online if they get the course. This is nonpartisan. It doesn't tell anyone how to vote. It educates them so they can make an informed vote, right? And they can say, oh, I have these freedoms and I want to protect them. What are the policies that would protect that? And if we don't have the courage to do that, then we're lost as a nation. Because this is, when you think, I don't know if some people have seen those memes of like the Revolutionary War people, and it's like they were fighting against a 2% tax.
Mhm.
Okay, then you see memes where like we have like, 40, 50, 60% tax in some ways, more in some ways. And they're, just standing in line with their phone and not fighting against this
Mhm.
ridiculous overbearing government. And we need to stand up, and it's going to take every one of us. It's going to take every single one of us. I tell people you can't do everything. Not everyone is going to have a talk show like you. Not everyone's going to be doing what I do, but everybody can do something. Everybody can contact their neighbors, their friends, and say, this matters. Are you registered to vote? Have you read the Bill of Rights? Do you know if you're voting for a person who will protect your rights? I mean, these are simple things. And somehow, because it has gotten to be such a divisive society, because that's how you destroy a culture, is you divide, it's gotten people to be afraid of this basic, very, very basic information. So I say, no, if you love your freedom, you have to get out of the fear zone and get into the courage zone, because, once it's gone, it's going to be gone. And
That's right.
yeah,
Can't bring it back.
right. We can't bring it. It'll be decades, generations before we can bring it back again. And we have this incredible opportunity now. And it's scary to think, in a sense, what is happening and what the corruption that we've seen, and the corruption, just the absolute corruption. But it's also very good, because it is exposing evil. I mean, if we pray that evil gets exposed and justice be served, right now, evil is getting exposed. Unfortunately, justice isn't fully served yet. But, the more it's exposed, the more we see it, the more people wake up and they begin to say, well, this doesn't seem right. And especially when they come after the kids, and we've got all this cultural stuff with kids, whether it's the transgender issues or I mean, just the low standards in schools and things. I mean, parents are like, no. Just, many parents are feeling like I felt in 1984 when I said, over my dead body, no, I'm not going to stand back and take a risk with my children. And so that's what we need. We need people to get that backbone and to not be afraid. They want us to be afraid. Of course, I mean, think of like the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum. They want us to be, in our 15-minute cities, in our cars with kill switches, and they want us to have digital currency so we can never save up any money or help a neighbor in need, or, I mean, we have no privacy, no ability to make our own decisions or anything that the government doesn't know about. So listeners, if you are out there and you're listening to this, it is time to stand up. You cannot stand back and do nothing now. So not only do you have to be an informed voter, you have to be an activated citizen where you help others become informed voters. And if I hear again that 40 to 50% of Christians didn't vote.
Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on that, Linda.
Yeah, that's enough. I mean, like we could turn this country around. And for those people who may be listening saying, oh, we don't want all these Christians running everything, that's not what we're saying. We're saying if Christians voted for freedom and human flourishing, then everyone can flourish. Then you have the freedom to be a Christian, or you have the freedom to not be a Christian. You have the freedom to choose your life the way you want to have your life. I have, different lessons in my course. One of them is, are you tired of being overregulated? And it's, people don't realize that, they're overregulated in their own life. They don't realize, like, are you being micromanaged? And they think, well, when I'm a teenager, my parents are trying to micromanage me. When I'm in the workplace, my boss is micromanaging me. But then I ask them, do you realize that your employer is being micromanaged? Well, how would my employer be micromanaged? They're the boss. Okay, well, the employer gets micromanaged when there's excessive taxation, legislation, regulation that cripples them, right? Well, then they're micromanaged, and then they end up, having to squeeze what they can give you. And so it just goes on and on. And so we want freedom. We want freedom for everybody. And we want freedom for businesses to flourish, freedom for families to flourish, freedom for people to choose the education they want for their children, and freedom for people to be able to choose the job and career they want, or to change a career if they want. I mean, this is what freedom is about, and that's what we're fighting for.
Freedom is a wonderful thing.
It is.
Let's go into a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a few minutes. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park, and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors, and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 1 p.m. Central Time. Definitely appreciate the time that we get to spend with each other. And our audience is growing. I want to thank Rob Patz with Abundant Television for making all of this happen. Been with Rob for several years now, and Rob's a real good guy. You can also find us on Abundant Television, Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. And our radio station, IC Radio, it's in Christ radio station, where we are Fox News affiliates. We appreciate that as well. You know something, you can also send an email anytime you want to. And that's Donna at donnasedge.com. I have Linda Hansen with me right now. And Linda, tell us a little bit about Herman Cain. What was he like out on the trail?
He was wonderful. It was truly an honor and pleasure to work with Herman Cain. I loved him like a family member. I mean, he became not just a colleague and a boss, but he became a mentor, a friend. I say like another father figure, a prayer partner. And if anyone knows him and he had that little twinkle in his eye and his sense of humor, I'd often say, partner in crime, because we would pull practical jokes on people. So he was great. It was truly an honor, and I miss him every day. The end of the month of July, it'll be 4 years since he passed away. And, I don't think that there's a day that goes by that there isn't something he taught me that comes through my mind. When I started Prosperity 101, he was my first advisor. He and Steve Moore were my first two advisors. And I remember telling Steve Moore, I know enough about economics to be dangerous, but not enough to be an expert. So I need help. Steve thought it was great. And Herman Cain absolutely loved every bit of it and helped me, really craft the message to be better. And I remember he told me all the time, simplify, simplify. If you hear his voice, you can hear him. But he was, when I started Prosperity 101, he was doing a radio show, a call-in radio show. And this was before he ran for president. And he told me, Hansen, which was my term of endearment. That was what he called me, Hansen. He said, I'm on the radio every day and I hear from these people, they don't need Prosperity 101. He said, Hansen, they need Prosperity 1.
You are absolutely
yes.
right.
And he was so wise. And so, he helped me simplify the message down so many times. I'd send him a new draft and he'd say, simplify. I'd say, okay, So my material is difficult concepts simplified. And I think all my years of homeschooling helped me to do that. God prepared me for that, right? That was a gift he gave me, all those years of simplifying difficult concepts. But Herman Cain made sure I did that. But on the campaign trail, he was wonderful. He loved people. He had a gift for people. I traveled with him pretty much almost everywhere, and we were busy. I can think of I feel like for a year, I never got more than 3 hours of sleep a night. The chief of staff and I, and then there was usually always another person, a bodyguard, we called him, but we were quite a team. And I have just precious memories of being at 35,000 feet, flying, strategizing, next steps for the campaign, praying for our nation, praying for our families, but also just getting to know him. He was such a quality man. He really, truly was. And it was just an honor and a gift to be able to work with him.
Absolutely. And we admired him big time. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you or give you a statement. Let's see what you think about this. Okay, so let's pretend a person is an atheist, okay, and they are a business owner. Even though you are an atheist, wouldn't you rather your employees understand and go by the 10 commandments? One of those would be thou shalt not steal.
Right.
So wouldn't that just be a good thing to have out there for your, wouldn't you rather your employees not steal from you? I get confused about, not really confused. I don't understand people who say, I don't want the 10 commandments in my office. Right. I don't want it. Well, why not?
Why
just
not?
a simple thing, because there are billions of dollars lost every year from businesses from employee theft.
Mm-hmm.
I know it happened to me too, as the person I least expected.
Right. We've had it happen too. And so, these are things, and every workplace is different. This is one of the things we need to think about. So for your listeners, for your audience, listeners, I want you to think about your own workplace, whether you're an employee or whether you're an employer. There's a way to bring these truths into the workplace. One of the places that I had the most impact in terms of doing a lot of workshops and getting books into people and educating the entire workforce began from an employee who saw an article about what I do with Prosperity 101, and he took it to his employer. And his employer had not been involved politically at all, really wasn't all that aware, but brought me in, talked to me and said, well, I think we need to do this. And this began a multi-year relationship with that company and a well-educated workforce. So whether you are an employer or an employee, these are principles that are really important. And when we start talking about our God-given rights, we know that we want to protect those for ourselves, but as we protect them for ourselves, we protect them for others. So the God-given rights of if we want to have the 10 commandments in our workplace, or, whatever it is we want to have there, we should be able to have there in freedom. And so I just think, atheists don't realize, I think, how much they benefit from the fact that our system of government has been based in the Judeo-Christian biblical values. Okay. And that has allowed them to have the freedom to be atheists. So, every country isn't like that. I mean, some countries you have to be a certain religion or you die. And this is very common. And so we know that, the freedom to believe or not to believe, is really protected under God and through our Constitution. And so those are just rights we have. And then our Constitution protects those rights and keeps government out of the way.
Let me ask you another question. This pertains to handwriting skills. Teaching that what do you think is the real reason they want to take that out of school?
I think it's the dumbing down of America. It's the absolute dumbing down of America. Cursive writing is actually really good for coordination, the brain connections. It's just like piano playing is good for developing both sides of the brain. I mean, I had all my kids take piano lessons, even though not all of them are that musical, but I told them, I don't care if you play when you're grown up. This is for your brain development right now. So humor me, but this is cursive writing is like that too. There are so many things that we're doing to dumb down America. And then we give kids screens way too early, in my opinion. And, my kids thought I was really a mean mom because my oldest son is 45, right? So Sesame Street was the new thing when he was young. And I watched and I thought that is not helpful for their attention span. So their ability to watch Sesame Street was very limited. And of course I was the weird mom, but I thought, no, I need to train their brain. I'm raising adults. I'm not raising children who need to be pacified. I'm raising adults, and I want their brains to be the strongest, most vibrant brains possible. And I wasn't going to let them just sit and be pacified and have their attention span so limited. So I think that no cursive writing is right in that line. We want to feed and entertain people, make it be the easiest it can be. And I disagree. I think the more we encourage children to write, and even if they're just printing, but if they actually write with a pen and a paper, there's that connection that goes to the brain that is so critically important. And in our society, I guess we've stopped raising critical thinkers. So, that's part of the reason why we have such an ill-informed electorate too, because they don't have the skill set. They haven't been taught to how to think. They've been taught what to think, but not how to think. And so we really need to bring that back and teach people the skills of critical thinking. And some of that is training your brain to do that. And that happens when you're young. I remember I read a book when I was first homeschooling. It's called The Well-Trained Mind. I can't remember the author right now, but it's a big book. And it just reminded me of how important it is to train our brains. And we get lazy as adults and as parents. We can get lazy, but it's just like our physical body. If we want to stay healthy and strong, we need to be active, and our brains need to stay active. And for me, raising my kids, it was very, very important for me to make sure I was consistently doing things. Not like it makes it sound like, we were in a like sure, there were
what you're saying.
But no, there were a lot of ways to bring fun into that too. Learning is fun, and when you have ways that kids can learn and they can be fun and they can learn how to use all different parts of their brain, and they become aware of the potential that they have, that is a gift we can give. And I just think in our society now and in our educational system, we play to the lowest common denominator, and
that one rules,
right? Yeah,
it really is. Let me ask you another question, and this is something that I've thought about, and I've heard other commentators talk about this, and this is handwriting, and cursive handwriting. But the founding documents were basically handwriting.
They're amazing.
Is there another reason for that? So they can't read anything. It has to be print. It has to be.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is a reason as well?
Oh, I think so. I think that is all part of it. If you don't have that skill to read that, you can't read the founding documents.
Right.
Then you are a prisoner to what everyone says they say. Mm-hmm. It's like having the wrong interpreter for a foreign language, right?
Right.
But it's true about everything. I mean, that's very, very important. And when we don't have good reading skills, then we can't read the Bible, which is so important for life. For many, many years, I taught middle school at our church, and I had these 4th through 8th graders for more years than they cared to admit. These kids were with me year after year after year, and it was a wonderful thing. In fact, I've had a few of the grown ones on my podcast now because they've grown into their calling, which is so exciting. But when they were young kids, a lot of them, they had trouble maybe reading the Bible. They didn't understand what the words meant. I would always have them read out loud, and I could identify which kids were having some trouble, whatever. I could take some extra time with them. The church we had was, it was kind of a melting pot for homeschool and private school, public school for miles around. And so I had this variety of kids, and it broke my heart when I saw kids who couldn't read. And then even if they could, they had no understanding of what the words meant. So I bought them all a dictionary. I made sure they all had a Bible, and I made sure they all had a dictionary. And as we'd go around, I'd say, well, what does that word mean? Well, I don't know. I'd say, okay, you get to look it up. And they got like candy or something. They got like points, or I can't remember what kind of reward thing I did if they brought their Bible and their dictionary every week. And every week we had to look up things, because as we read out loud, I said, you know what that means? What does that verse mean? What does that word mean? Well, I don't know, and I'd say, well, let's go find out. And then I had to teach the homeschool kids knew how to look things up in a dictionary. Mm-hmm. The public school and even a lot of the private school kids had no idea how to use a dictionary. Mm-hmm. And now, we have Google, right? So nobody knows.
Why use a dictionary when you can Google it?
Siri, how do you spell? And I'm like, no, that's not good for your brain.
What do you say to the person who they live just right down the road from you? They have no kids, no grandkids, no nothing. And they say, I really don't care about the school system. I just really don't care. I have no skin in the game.
Ooh,
what do you say to that person?
Oh, they have skin in the game because their
Yes, they
taxes
do.
are paying for that. Okay,
Uh-huh.
their taxes are paying for it. And those kids that are in that school are going to be the next leaders, right? So they will be the next ones in government. And, when my kids were young, I keep talking about when I was homeschooling, but you started it with homeschooling. So I kind of go back to that. But I remember, because I was always talking to people about issues, I was kind of like the political one, when other moms were reading maybe, Parents Magazine. Well, I did read that too, but I would read, Heritage Foundation policy papers or something, and I was always reading about policy. So I was always speaking about it and telling people. And so I was asked to run for school board. And I did not. I chose not to run for school board, but I was actually very involved. And there was an issue with the sex education curriculum. And people from that area came to me and said, will you please help us fight this? Will you come? You're the only one who knows. Well, people did ask me, you don't have kids in the school. Why are you involved in this? I said, well, one, my tax dollars are paying for this school. And two, those kids are going to grow up and maybe date my kids. This
Or
is
live by you.
yes. This is, we don't realize. And I will say too, like, we never know who we're educating. I share this story all the time. And when people talk about employers educating employees, does it really matter? Whatever. I share the story about Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was a liberal. He had liberal viewpoints. No one knew when he was a lifeguard in Eureka, Illinois, what he would become, right? But he had liberal viewpoints until he worked for General Electric. And when Ronald Reagan worked with General Electric, they had a free enterprise book club. They just wanted their employees to read books about what made free enterprise so important to the success of their business, what capitalism meant to the success of their business and their job. And Ronald Reagan's worldview began to change. And I think this is just such a great example, because years later, he's telling Mikhail Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Okay, but who knew when he was a lifeguard in Eureka, Illinois, right? So I tell employers, you have no idea who you're educating. You have no idea. Some of those kids that were in my class at that church too, one of them is the coach for the USA Paralympic rugby team. And he was a medalist twice with the USA Paralympic. He was paralyzed shortly in his first early college years from a boating accident. What a wonderful young man. And, but, we had no idea. I remember talking to him and he said, yeah, that verse you shared, I didn't pay attention when I was in your class because I was too busy flirting with your daughter. But, but you don't realize. And it comes back. So to that neighbor down the street that thinks, I don't care.
No biggie.
Or what's the difference? Oh, it matters so much. It matters to every part of their life. It matters who is elected. Elections have consequences. Ideas have consequences. And we see the consequences of so many ideas that are harmful to society, harmful to families, harmful to individuals now. And if we don't stand up, who will?
No one will. Less than a minute left in this segment. How can folks find more information about what you do?
Oh, well, I'd love to hear from your listeners. Please go to prosperity101.com. That's prosperity101.com. Fill out the contact form. Tell me who you are, that you heard me on Donna's show. You can also get the free ebook with 10 tips for educating your employees about public policy issues that affect their jobs. You can see all the podcasts there, and they're on all the major podcast platforms. So you can subscribe to the podcast. You can contact me about getting the course. Ordering books, please contact me. I'd love to hear from your audience.
Linda, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an honor. And thank you so much for the education. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate what you do very, very much. Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for watching. We definitely appreciate that. I hope you have an awesome rest of the day. Thanks, Linda, for being with us.